Grand Slam track has made a lot of promises and big claims in the last year, and we finally got to see if they could put their money where their mouth is in their first Kingston Slam in Jamaica. But let's first give them their credit where it's due. I would say most of the races delivered on the hype, and we got to see a healthy mix of dominant performances and surprise upsets. And despite a couple late pullouts and athletes who clearly were not in competition shape, we really did get to see a championship level field go head to head in early April, and we'll get to see this 3 more times over the next 6 weeks. I actually enjoyed seeing a lot of athletes compete in other disciplines as well, which is something I thought would be boring and underwhelming for most categories. And sure, it wasn't exciting to see the Olympic 1500 meter podium run 1:48 for the 800, but seeing the hurdlers compete in the flat equivalent of their distance, or some of the 100-200 specialists give the 400 a go, was surprisingly fun. I think the decision to have their specialist event first was really important for this, because it added the extra stakes to the non-specialist race that it would crown the Grand Slam champion. So even if the time wasn't super exciting, the occasion was. It also made things less predictable as results came down to the unknown event for these athletes rather than the one we have seen them compete in dozens of times. I do wonder if this will maintain its charm as we get more used to seeing the racers compete in their non-specialist discipline as the mystery of that performance starts to disappear, but hopefully the season progression and challenges will help that out. Now, another key decision for GST was to have the meet in the early season when athletes are simply not going to be very fit, especially compared to the peak summer months. And whilst this did net slower times, GST's emphasis on quality racing over fast times helped make this less of an issue for me personally. It also means we got to see some upsets in the events. Hudson Smith losing the 400, Nikki Hiltz winning the 800, Wanyonyi winning the 1500, and we also saw some strong performances that, whilst were not exactly upsets, were pretty surprising to see. Of course, we did still get to see some insanely fast times as well, with Salwa Eid Nasser's 400 performance being the real standout. So I would say overall that the event category and point system format did better than I expected for this first slam at least, but it does not mean that it didn't have its issues. Most notably, there were problems in the distance events where we saw athletes run a very different and sometimes conservative race because they were already up on points. The most infamous example of this was Grant Fisher in the men's long distance. Going into the second race that was a 3K, Fisher was on 12 points with his 2 biggest rivals being Cooper Tier in second and 8 points, and Dylan Jacobs with 6 points. After a super tactical 5K race, many were wondering if the 3K would be looking the same, and it was. Kind of. Right from the gun, Telehun Bekele and Hagos Gebret took out an aggressive lead and were quickly developing a gap with the field. Oftentimes when a runner makes a gap this big, they gas out later on in the race and get swallowed by the chase pack, but this lead got wider and wider to the point where Gebret was solo running with a 50-meter lead after Bekele began to fade quickly. He won with a slow time due to the wind, but a dominant victory nonetheless, with the race favourite Grant Fisher coming 3rd place behind him and Bekele. So why didn't Fisher give chase given that he obviously has the fitness to keep up? Well, quite simply, both Bekele and Gebret were low on points from a bad 5k performance. Even if either of them took maximum points in this race, Fisher would still win the meet overall and the 100k prize fund as long as he came 3rd. Because of this, Fisher played things safe and essentially raced for 3rd place, instead of trying to keep up with Gebret and risk gassing out mid-race or tiring himself out for future meets in the season. The others followed suit, presumably thinking their best chance for a strong position was to try and outkick each other rather than try and solo run in gale type conditions. Although Fisher claimed 3rd place in a fast finish and won the slam overall, this move caused a lot of controversy, with some calling the move unsportsmanlike and cowardly. This was not helped by the fact that both races were won in incredibly slow times, the men's 5k in particular being won in a 14:39 with a 51.3 second last lap. For reference, top marathon runners go at a faster pace than that in their races. Now, my somewhat controversial take is that I don't actually mind these ultra slow races, so long as they don't become too common within GST. In Grand Slam track's format, all of the long distance races are likely to be tactical, given the lack of paces. If you add the hot windy conditions that Jamaica had, people are heavily discouraged from making the race fast. But so long as 14-minute 5Ks aren't the norm, I think a faster but still overall tactical race will be interesting to see, and a nice change from the sometimes monotonous nature of the wave-like time trial type races you see in the Diamond League. Variety is everything at the end of the day, and even in non-paced races, we can still get fast times, as both women's distance races were hard-fought affairs with some aggressive front running. At the very least, I don't think you can hate Fisher for his choice to race for 3rd place. He didn't make the rules for GST and was just doing what he felt would give him the best chance to win. He also has to race a minimum of 4 3Ks and 4 5Ks in the space of 2 months, which is a lot, especially after you consider how busy his indoor season was. If he has the chance to preserve his legs for the next slam, there's no reason why he shouldn't take it. As Fisher said himself, if you want him to run differently, then beat him in the first race before you start talking. Now, whilst I understand his reasoning behind the tactics, I do think it exposes an issue with the format of the distance races for Grand Slam track. If you don't give any incentive for fast running, then we won't just get tactical races, we will sometimes get comically slow races. And you will get more instances of athletes racing for 3rd place as they know that's enough to secure them the win. I think the most obvious and easy solution to this is to add points bonuses based on times for individual athletes. So for instance, running a sub 13 in the 5k could give an athlete a 2-point bonus on top of their positional bonus, and this could apply to multiple runners in the race. You could also give a 1-point bonus for all athletes running sub 13:30, maybe also with a 3-point bonus for a sub 12:50. This would both encourage everyone to keep a semi-honest pace and also mean that the winner of the previous race does not get too comfortable, as if their rival runs much faster than them, they could lose through some of the bonuses. I mean, imagine how exciting it could be if we saw someone throw caution to the wind and run hard from the start, trying to chase a fast time, as that's the only way they can win the overall slam. I do still think GST should maintain that ethos that racing is the most important thing, so these points should not be so influential that they encourage a time trial style race. We do have to realize that this slow pacing is going to be the reality for most of the distance runners, unless you have athletes willing to take big risks in front running to victory. With how packed the race calendar is, these slow times are something people will have to accept. But hopefully points bonuses would stop situations like Fischer sitting back whilst Geberit runs to a dominant but ultimately meaningless victory. They could get fancy as well and have wind adjusted points bonuses before the race, as the wind in the Kingston Slam was extreme and had a notable impact on even the most dominant performances in the slam. And for the overall men's and women's racer category, which is an extra prize GST give after 4 slams to the most dominant runner, you can just judge things off their positional points and exclude the time bonuses. But now let's get into the elephant of the room and the real reason you've probably clicked. The crowd. So basically, there was no one there to watch it, especially on the first day where the stadium was almost empty. And this is just a week after the Jamaican Schools Athletics Champs, which had a 30,000 stadium capacity, looking like this. Obviously a terrible, embarrassing look for GST, especially given the talent they have at their disposal. It's hard to be the saviour of track when you have only 200 people in your stadium. Apparently on days 2 and 3, they began to give out free tickets and try and boost stadium attendance, and although that probably was a good move, it still didn't seem to have much effect. The Diamond League and Atlas also made some sly comments about GST's lack of a crowd, with the Diamond League reporting their high stadium attendance from last year on an Instagram post, and Atlas commenting on how people packed out to see them. The broadcast was also shoddy at times, with the audio regularly cutting out on the Peacock stream and strange camera angles being used for the drone footage at times. And for the creator streams that they offered for free on YouTube, the first half of day 1 had the camera angle looking like this, which was later replaced by the CCTV looking footage for days 2 and 3. I know it's free, but this was a really weird thing to experience in live time and just looked cheap. As a creator, I'm obviously going to support creator streams, but I do think if done correctly, they give a nice balance of Grand Slam track being able to promote their events, while still giving a better quality option that incentivizes people to pay for the Peacock stream. It also means people are much less likely to pirate because they have a free option that is good enough. But if they do another creator stream, just maybe have slightly worse camera angles, a lack of graphics, that sort of thing. So you can maintain that balance but not have this cheap, weird CCTV look. But going back to stadium attendance, why did the Kingston Slam not pull in the numbers GST had hoped for, despite having so many big names in their lineup? Now, I won't pretend to be knowledgeable on the Jamaican sports market, so instead I'm going to tell you some of the thoughts and opinions of what I've seen online. For one, the event seemed to be poorly marketed for the Jamaican audience. Many locals did not know this event was happening and would have attended if there was more on the ground marketing in the country. The slam was also done at a very poor time in the country. It started at 6 PM local time, which is very soon after most people finish work. A 6 PM start time means most people would need to run home or go directly from work to attend. Even then, there is notoriously bad rush hour traffic around this time in Kingston, which is why Friday in particular was very empty. There may also have been some track fatigue after the school champs as well. And it seems we all just generally overestimated the chances of Jamaicans flocking to a track meet with a few big stars. At the end of the day, this is the first meet of the entire series, so we should give it time to develop. Hopefully the American audiences will fill out the stadium more, especially as the Miami stadium had much smaller capacity at only 5,000. With GST's marketing also being very USA focused, you would hope that more people would get tickets. Overall, I think their main issues in the first slam can be summarized as being optical issues. The concept works pretty well, but it's more about the presentation. They have a good core product, top racers competing regularly against each other for good money, but the poor optics of no crowd and a disorganized stale broadcast are really holding them back. Another large complaint with the broadcast was the amount of dead time in between. For 3-hour broadcasts, there were only 8 events each, which meant there was a lot of downtime where not a lot was happening. You could show trailers for the upcoming race in between, have pre-recorded interviews with the athletes, have fun things they apparently did in the live stadium with fan cams, games with the crowd, and interviews with athletics legends who were present in the stadium. GST don't have field events that can support the broadcast when the races are not on, so they need to find a way to keep those audiences engaged. New viewers to the sport won't be willing to sit through dead time just to see these athletes compete. I'd say the first slam has revealed that there is potential there, but it's a very unpolished product. There is still a way to go, but hopefully the Miami Slam will be able to build on the successes of the previous meet. If you want to see my tactile breakdown of how Emmanuel Wanyoni humiliated the Olympic 1500 meter podium, then click on this video here. If you want to see a video on what Josh Kerr's YouTube debut teaches us about bad athlete marketing, then click on this video here. Thank you very much for watching. I know I've been rinsing the Grand Slam track content a little bit. Next video will probably be on the Diamond League, but hopefully I'll see you in the next one either way. Happy training.